Hello and welcome to The Print. Today we have Mr. Yashovardhan Jha, former IPS, who was a special director with the Intelligence Bureau. He has served for decades in the internal security apparatus, is well versed with how the security forces function, and we have him here today because of a very important petition that he has filed in the Supreme Court regarding the use of pellet guns. Now, we know that it is for the first time in Delhi that for crowd control, a pellet gun has been used. This is something that which was unheard of earlier, because we've seen use of pellet guns in Kashmir and heard in Manipur, although there's no specific evidence. But yes, in Kashmir, of course, we have seen the use of pellet guns, but never in Delhi. So, sir, I want to know from you, if you could tell our viewers the gist of your petition. Why did you feel the need to move the Supreme Court for this? What prompted you to do it?
Well, I think I should start by saying that July 20th, 2026, is a historical date for Delhi's history. It was deeply distressing, disturbing, that the kind of violence which was unleashed from both sides, not only from the police side in the unprofessional acts, but also the protesters, in fact, the criminals who had infiltrated
Right.
the protest side. And but 118 policemen were injured and about 70 protesters. Now, if you go into this entire saga of violence, you'll realize that basically it's a political lapse which took place, which led to all this. And inevitably, as it happens, if you see the sequence of protests throughout for the last 2, 3 decades, what happens is that the protesters take the march, they break the barricades, and there's no such thing as police mild lathi charge, as they say.
Yeah.
The reprisal is also swift and very hard, and people get injured on both sides. But more important than that is that when we use civilian crowd control weapons, they are laid out. The SOPs laid out. There is an array of arsenal of weapons you have at hand. You have a gradation kind of an approach to the SOP, where you use the mild things, you use water cannon, you use tear gas shells, you use a mild lathi charge, and ultimately only it comes down to a lethal weapon. Now, pellet gun in the SOP defined by the MHA in 2016 or something. In fact, there was an expert committee which was constituted after the incidents which happened in J&K. And mind you, there also, there was an uproar because more than 6,000 people were injured. And most importantly, when you got those injuries in the eyes, there were AIMS doctors. And I remember because my elder brother, Dr. Yashovardhan Jha Azad, was the chief of eye in AIMS. And he told me about the graphic details, how the eyes were damaged, some of them almost permanently. Now, the MHA had laid down an SOP. And in Parliament, in fact, in 2018, there was a reply by one of the ministers that, okay, pellet guns have not been banned. There is a SOP defined. This is to be used as a second last resort. 3 days training is to be given, and therefore it can be used. But that is neither here nor there. The question is that you used it in an insurgency situation. It is appreciated, good or bad. The damage inflicted was high, though. The result was disproportionate, I think, to the gains that you were seeking.
Right.
Now, in the case of Delhi, the pellet gun was used in CP, Zone 1 area. And you know that in the General Diary, it has been said that the PCP allowed the use of RAF. Now, there are two things here. One is under what circumstances it was used. Was the police being overwhelmed? Was the police cornered, or there was threat to life that they used it?
Right.
But the second thing which I am talking about the use per se of pellet guns in a democracy like ours. In none of the developed democracies of the world pellet guns are used. There's an array of weapons which we also have: chili sprays, stun grenades, rubber bullets, and things like that. Question is, why should we use pellet guns, which causes disproportionate damage
Right.
as compared to the gains we feel in the case of doing a kind of a crowd management?
Yeah.
So we went with specific two things to the court, and I'm very grateful to my lawyer Rinda Grover, who agreed to take up this case for the Supreme Court. First is, pellet guns should be banned per se, for the reason that it does not pinpoint. For a civilian ground control weapon, there has to be a specific aim.
Yeah.
This is disproportionate.
Yeah.
This sort of unleashes an array of metallic objects, shrapnels, which go to any part of the body. It can hit you in the eye, it can hit you in the leg, it can hit you in very sensitive organs, and you are permanently inflicted.
Yeah.
So that was one. That is why it should not be used, because there are better alternatives. And number two, the kind of damage that we have seen, including the two people, Pradeep and Mansur, who filed the case with me,
Yeah.
you'll realize what damage has been inflicted. So we said that the compensation should be over and above the normal. It should be for life.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of damage it has been inflicted. So
Right.
these are the two demands we put in Supreme Court, and we expect that Supreme Court, when the hearing is tomorrow, they will first institute a judicial inquiry in which all the facts will come out. The state will also present its case, and then realize that the pellet guns are of no use and it should be banned permanently.
Right. So in 2010, in fact, it was the first time that these pellet guns were used in Kashmir. Of course, there was a lot of damage, a lot of people were injured. Then again, I mean, there were talks of why it should not be used. It became very controversial in 2016 when the Burhan Wani, when Burhan Wani was killed. There were a lot of protests in the Kashmir Valley. So many people got injured. In fact, Mr. Rajnath Singh said it in the parliament that over 50 to 60 people sustained eye injuries and one person was killed. So much has happened in the past where this subject is so critical. Then in 2017, after this 2016 incident of Burhan Wani and how these people were injured, there were certain modifications that were done in these pellet guns also. There was a deflector which they brought that this will at least deflect the pellets under the torso, and then a plastic coating was also introduced. Do you think that is sufficient, or do you seek a complete ban? I mean, you've made your point pretty clear, but are certain sort of modifications an option, or there should be a complete ban?
The answer lies in the damage which has been inflicted right now.
Yeah.
Whether it's a rubber coated or whatever, the damage is the same.
Right.
Realize one of the persons has damaged his eye almost completely.
Yes.
So the question is, yes, I know the SOP was done. I said that 3-day training was also supposed to be given, and it was used to be as the second last resort. But look at the disproportionate damage as compared to the gains which you hope to achieve.
Right, right.
So, in the case of Delhi, in the Connaught Place, first of all, there has to be inquiry under what circumstances it was used.
Right.
And weren't the normal procedures which are used in the SOP otherwise, they were not sufficient enough to block them? During my time, we didn't have anything. I used rubber bullets way back in 82, 83. In 4 districts, and as a DIG, I faced numerous here where the police was ill-equipped. The reason today is also, if you've seen that crowd of Delhi police with danda and ordinary uniform without protection, it was only the RAF which was using the protection. The state does not spend money on security, which it should. If one man is properly equipped with metal shields and a body propylene shield, he's a force multiplier. That's equivalent to 10 people. The protection becomes and the morale becomes very, very high. So that is the way to go about it. Pellet guns are no answer because they cause incalculable damage. That is why what we have said, ban it. And you say that fine, the government says, I mean, that fine. In a special situation in the insurgency, used it 2010 and then again in 2016. Okay, you said that stone throwing was severe. Many policemen got injured, the army and all that, and they were doing from nooks and corners. Therefore, it was difficult to approach. You could not do a lathi charge. Tear gas shells would waft in the air, the smoke, etc. So you brought about this. Now it's 9 years. Are you going to still continue with it? Hasn't technology improved? Haven't you got chili sprays, stun grenades, rubber bullets in a better form, and all kinds of things? So something, and another very important principle in a democracy is when you are using a crowd control weapon, it cannot be indiscriminate in its effect. You understand what I mean? It has been pinpointed. Even if we do firing, the firing is below the waist because we don't want to kill the guy.
Yeah.
We aim at a particular person and it's pinpointed. But when you're firing these shells,
Yeah.
these metallic shrapnels are going, they have an area effect.
Right.
They don't have a targeted effect.
Yeah.
That's the reason, even technically, it should be banned. And that's our basic, aim. And we are hoping that the Supreme Court does it.
So you have served, you must have obviously encountered such situations while in service. Do you think that this sort of response that you saw on the 20th July, did the police, the forces panic? Were they not prepared? Or was this complete miscalculation of how to really counter control?
You said it. Miscalculation on two counts. What happened was, one, there was a kind of a lapse in intelligence.
Right.
And a kind of in Hindi we call it hat dharmita, that hubris, that nay, we'll be able to deal with this. They thought 3,000, 4,000 crowd, 8,000 crowd will come.
Right.
The crowd was about 50,000.
Yeah.
So obviously, when 50,000 plus crowd comes, you get jittery because the command center also gets a little wavering, which side we should use force. People were coming all sides, they were being blocked at everywhere. That's definitely one of the reasons. That's why stragglers and forces which were not really dressed properly, equipped properly, were trying to, deal with people in different groups. And the retaliation became also very, very heavy. From the protesters' side, also the criminals who were there, they got an opportunity to do it. So yes, you're right. One was the miscalculation. And second was some of the professional acts of the police, because when you're encountering such a situation, the command has to be very, very secure. And but when you are splintered in groups, there can be incidents like this. And I think that is the kind of thing which took place in this particular situation.
So this, of course, sir, was unprecedented. We had never heard of a pellet gun being used in Delhi. Another such incident happened in Siwan, in Bihar, where a policeman opened AK-47. Now, how do you see this use of force in, say, a democracy like ours to suppress or to quell a protest, I would say? Use of AK-47, something that, of course, it's not even a crowd control measure. It's a weapon which is used for terrorists by, say, Indian Army during an operation. How do you see this? Is it like, what is happening with the police forces? Are they not trained that well? Is it lack of training? Is it some sort of trigger happiness that we are seeing now?
I would blame the state governments. First of all, they don't believe in training the policemen. Many policemen have not even fired their weapon. They don't give police the right equipment, the accoutrement. And in Bihar, for example, because that's my state, I know very well. Now in Siwan, there was a violent agitation. Violent is really violent. And senior officers got hit, and they got hit very badly in head injuries and things like that. The reaction, you don't know, is not controlled. It has to be lawful, but it has to be under a solid command. It has to be with the right equipment. You don't have those at all. So these reactions which come are highly unprofessional, and this is what it results in. But all the same, it doesn't, unless you're saving your life, the use of AK-47 is ridiculous. I mean,
Right.
obviously, there's no way. I mean, you can't allow these things to happen. And what does it reveal? What does it display in a democracy? So the complete fault with the government. And by the way, the chief minister is the home minister of the state.
Yeah, absolutely. But where do you think the buck stops? Who is accountable? Who should be held accountable? Of course, now there will be an inquiry. The person who opened the pellets here in CP, they will.
Independent, and then
Yeah, but
I
where
know.
does the accountability lie? Where does the buck stop?
The accountability lies with the leadership. You have to take the blame. Leadership, both at the operational level, leadership at the political command level. After, what is a home secretary for? What is a home minister for? What do they do? I mean, isn't the chief minister supposed to see that his police is well equipped, well trained, well armed, well sensitized? I mean, how can you have those scenes where women are being
Clapped.
ill-treated? And I mean, this is stupid. And under any pressure, you can't do things like that. So obviously, the leadership is responsible. And but the only thing is I would say this divide between the police and the public is coming more and more because the politicians, it suits them because they want to use the police for their own. They transfer on their own. Every MLA wants his own Kaptan, own SP. Every MP wants the same. They want to run the districts to their own diktat. This is the basic problem. And unless it's looked at it holistically, this is going to continue. It needs a very serious thinking on the part of the lawmakers.
Right. But so why do you think that, I won't say the government, but security forces and even the courts have been hesitant in banning the use of pellet guns? Like you yourself very rightly mentioned, that there are several other means of crowd control. There are batons, there's lathi, there's tear gas, there's chili powder, all of those, I mean, that are effective in crowd control. Then why is it that even the courts have been hesitant in banning the use of pellet guns?
Well, technically, I mean, if you really look at it, the courts, if they are leaving the matter of decision on crowd control on the weapons used, etc., they are right in leaving it to the state. But the state is not doing anything.
Right.
So because the state is not doing anything, that is why we have filed a PIL to the Supreme Court. I mean, I myself say that Supreme Court should not decide 90% of the things which is deciding today.
Right.
But what do? You had a meeting of the experts committee in 2014 on pellet guns. Then what happened? Then what happened? 2016.
Changes were recommended, and that's about it. Nothing major happened.
Nothing. So MHA came out with an SOP. We don't know what the SOP is. They say it is secret or whatever, but they said these basic things. So nothing happened after that. Government does not come out with a statement. Mr. Amit Shah doesn't say anything. कि भाई पैलेट गन्स यूज करना चाहिए प्रजातांत्रिक प्रणाली में, बाहर तो इस्तेमाल हो नहीं रहा है कहीं पे, हम यहाँ पे क्यों कर रहे हैं? किसी चीज पे चर्चा नहीं होती, बात नहीं होती. So what do? Then people go to the courts.
Right.
And that's why it has landed in the Supreme Court today.
Right. Last question, what do you expect now will happen? We have 5 pellet victims now. In fact, we have visuals of pump action gun also being used by RAF. But this note that we have accessed, the DD entry at the Parliament Street, this mentions an anti-riot gun. So it's still unclear whether only one weapon was used. There were more rounds fired. We know only of 2 rounds being fired till now. What do you expect? How do you think the Supreme Court will take this going forward?
You see, first of all, I thought that the High Court should have taken care of it because it has the jurisdiction. But anyway, I do expect the Supreme Court. It has asked for replies from the various chief secretaries and the AG. I do expect the Supreme Court to order a judicial inquiry under what circumstances this was used, under what circumstances the policemen were attacked. I'm happy that it has kept its stand that those people who attacked the police and the public property should be prosecuted.
Right.
That's an important thing. On the other hand, the unprofessional acts of the police, that is the pellet gun thing, they should look into it under what circumstances it was here. And then they should consider our plea that look at the damage which has been inflicted for crowd control. If the grounds were not good enough for usage of it, then it should be banned, because any other use as per the SOP would have been effective.
Right.
So these are the two things we expect. And we, of course, expect that a proper, well-graded compensation packaged should be given to them, because after all, their lives have been affected if the eye has been damaged.
Thank you so much for joining us, Yashovardhan sir. Thank you so much for your time.